So, hi everyone, I'm Charanjeev Kaur and I'll be moderating today's event as a part of Dev Week by Innerve 21, Technoliterati and HackClub IGDTUW. So, today we have with us Aditya Oberai. He's a DevRel Engineer at Appwrite. He's an MLH coach and Gold MLSA. So, he delivers amazing talks, and I'm sure today's workshop will be fun and simulating. So, he'll be giving us a talk on cloud computing with some hands on projects. So, welcome Aditya, and let's get started.
Thank you so much for that. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for joining in today. I am Aditya. I'm going to be here with you, and we're just going to talk about what cloud computing is because it's something we all keep hearing about. But it's actually a pretty cool technology. I've been working with cloud for a while now, so I'm really excited to share about cloud with you. Now, the basic structure of this session is going to be I'm going to talk a little bit about what cloud is, the different types of clouds, different types of cloud services, all of that. And then we're going to have something practical, which will be followed by a Q&A. All right. So I'm loving the buzz here in the comments. Definitely exciting stuff. Um, I hope this session is going to be fun. So, Charanji, if you could bring up my screen, I think I've just shared it. It would be great. Thanks a lot for that. So yeah, um, I do want to mention that as I go through the slides, I'm just gonna have a few questions and then we're gonna discuss and talk about it. So if you wanna throw in any queries at any point, please feel free to. All right, we'll take them as they come. So yeah, I guess the topic of this session is rather explicitly visible. It's about cloud computing. First things first, absolutely lovely introduction there, but I'll just share a bit about myself. I am Aditya Oberai. I'm currently a DevRel engineer at Appwrite as well as a final year student pursuing my CSC at Amity University, Noida. I've been active in tech communities for about a little over 2 years now. Currently, I'm active as a Major League Hacking coach in the APAC region. I'm also a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. Slight typo, sorry about that. I am a GDSC lead here for Amity Noida as well. And I am a member of Twilio's MVP program, Twilio Champions. In case you ever want to reach out to me, whether to talk about tech, communities, DevRel, or even aside from that, if you're a football buff, please feel free to reach out to me at any point of time. So I guess as you know, we started talking about cloud computing, and we want to take this as a more intro level session. That's what I want to do because I think this could be a great way to get started and have that intro. The first question that really arises is, what exactly is cloud computing? What is this thing that we hear? When we're talking about cloud services and cloud enabled applications and solutions, but what is cloud? So, simply put, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services like server, storage, networking, software, AI, databases over the internet to offer faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. So what cloud is? It isn't something that's floating around in the air. It's just another computer that you're connected to over the internet to get these services. But the big advantage there is that you're paying only for cloud services that you use. So that decreases your operating costs. It helps you run your infrastructure more efficiently and scale as your organization, product, business needs change. So that's definitely advantageous because it allows you to quickly get your product out there. It allows you to build, innovate faster without having to worry about having your own hardware and servers. Sure, they have their own benefits and use cases, but this does create an advantage for a huge amount of us, and especially as hobbyists ourselves. So, I definitely am a big supporter of cloud computing. I love the concept, and I'm going to share a little more about the benefits of cloud computing now. So, the first big point is cost. Cloud eliminates a huge amount of the capital expense of buying hardware and software and setting it up on site, on your own data centers. So you don't have to maintain racks of servers and round the clock electricity for power and cooling, as well as hiring IT experts for managing the infrastructure. This does allow you to save a lot of money, which is especially beneficial as a smaller or a medium-sized business owner, as well as for larger organizations, in certain use cases as well, because you know you don't have to buy and scale hardware like that. Maintaining data centers of your own can be extremely costly. So it does enable you to save a lot of money. The second aspect is speed. Most cloud computing services are provided self-service and on demand. So even vast amounts of computing resources can be provisioned in minutes. Typically, it's gonna be like a few mouse clicks and just a few type. You just need to type a little click of your mouse a few times, and that's gonna help you set up most of your resources. So it's that quick and that easy. And this actually gives a lot of businesses and organizations a lot of flexibility. It takes the pressure off capacity planning as well. And at the start, even if you have smaller resources, you can continue scaling them up later on. That's something that cloud computing models definitely enable you to do. Third thing, it allows you to achieve a global scale. The benefits of cloud computing services include the ability to scale elastically. So what that means is you can deliver the right amount of IT resources, wherever and whenever you need, and that would include more or less computing power, storage, bandwidth, and you can actually allocate a certain amount for one region and then a certain for another. So it gives a lot of flexibility at a global level rather than just in your region. This does become very important, especially when we have audiences working with our products that are distributed over regions. Because if you have just one data center in India, for example, someone in the USA might have trouble. But with cloud models, you can actually have resources in all of these different places, connected together, functioning together. So it does create a huge advantage. Along with that, there is a productivity component here. On-site data centers require quite a lot of racking and stacking, which is basically hardware setup, patching, IT management chores essentially. And cloud computing removes the need for so many of these tasks, so that your tech teams can spend time on actually achieving the necessary business goals rather than preparing for how you can actually start to work on those. So there is a huge productivity boost involved. Performance, big benefit again. The biggest cloud computing services run on worldwide networks of secure data centers. So and then these are data centers that are regularly upgraded to the latest generation of fast and efficient computing hardware. So the big benefits here over the biggest points here over a single corporate data center is that there is reduced network latency for applications and greater economies of scale. And that's something that I was referring to earlier as well, right? So that's of course there. Reliability is a big factor. Cloud computing enables you to have a good data backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity, and it allows you to do so in a rather inexpensive manner as compared to whether you had to own your own data centers. Um, a big factor is because data can just be mirrored at multiple redundant sites on your cloud provider's network, so it does a lot of the work for you once you've opted in for such services. Security again is a good factor. Most cloud providers offer a broad set of policies, technologies, and controls that help strengthen your security posture generally quite well. And this protects your applications, infrastructure, data from potential threats. So that's definitely there. I'm going to take a minute here to just look at the chat once. And absolutely loving the buzz. You're all awesome. Thank you so much for all of this these comments. I think I did have a query about my best ever developer experience by Yogi. I'm gonna since that is gonna involve some cloud stuff, specifically around Azure, but I'm gonna take that at the end because that's a nice story of its own. And so would I talk about tips for a beginner. Uh, yeah, and I'll take both of those towards the end. Um, Along with that, yeah, so we talked about the benefits of cloud computing here. I think these are quite a few benefits, which make this such a legitimate option for a lot of us. Let's talk about some of the types of cloud computing now, because I'm sure if we've touched on cloud computing, um, so what we've come up with is there are terms like public, private, hybrid cloud, all of these. So let's talk about what these really mean. So Public clouds are owned and operated by a third-party cloud service provider that that would deliver their computing resources like servers, storage, all of that over the internet. Examples of public clouds would include AWS, Azure, GCP, all of these. Private cloud would refer to cloud computing resources used exclusively by a single business organization. So this could actually be, located on a company's on-site data center, and some companies pay third-party service providers to host their private clouds, and that you could have an external organization maintaining it dedicatedly just for you. Apart from that, hybrid clouds combine public and private cloud benefits bound together by tech that because what happens is that there are times when the private cloud's privacy benefits, the exclusivity is beneficial, and at the same time, you wanna at times use the public cloud for the general services as well. So hybrid cloud kind of brings the best of both together. It is bound together, it allows data and applications to move between private and public clouds. And this gives your business a lot of flexibility, more deployment options, better optimizations on for your existing infrastructure for security and compliance. I think I'm getting a couple of questions here. I'll just have a look at that. So why cloud computing? I think if you just probably scroll back a little in the video in the stream, you will find the benefits of cloud computing that I've discussed. These should probably give a good idea. It's a nice field, it's broad, there's a lot in it, but getting started is not the most difficult thing in the world. When I talk about prerequisites, what I recommend is to have some sort of sense of networking, but I'll get into where and why that's necessary. Typically, if you have some exposure to networking, OSs, a bit of programming, of course, it's going to help you leverage this entire space a lot better. So that's there. But that being said, there is a lot of quality, beginner centric and beginner friendly content available for you to learn. So even if you don't have existing experience, you can actually find that. I'll get into some resources later on, more in the context of Azure, because that's what I'll be doing my demo with later on. So yeah, how to begin is something I'm gonna discuss. Since I discussed the types of cloud computing around public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid, I want to talk a little more about specific types of cloud services as well. And these are terms that you might have come across that are IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, serverless, all of these. So I'm going to talk about these different types of cloud services now as well. So the first one that I want to talk about is infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. That's how I call it. I'm not sure if it's the perfect pronunciation, but I guess it works. So the most basic category of cloud computing services is infrastructure as a service. What this basically means is you rent IT infrastructure, servers, virtual machines or VMs, storage networks, operating systems from a cloud provider on a pay-as-you-go basis, and then you do whatever you want with them. So it's just the equivalent of you being able to access infrastructure, but you then do whatever you want on top of it. The next one is platform as a service, or PaaS. Platform as a service refers to services, cloud services that supply an on demand environment for developing, testing, delivering, managing, and software applications. This makes it pretty easy for developers to quickly deploy their applications without worrying about setup or managing underlying infrastructure, storage, network, databases. I'm actually going to be doing a PaaS centric demo because with my demo I'll be deploying a little application to Azure. So we're going to be using one of their most common PaaS services. Serverless computing, very cool concept. I love working with serverless solutions. So serverless computing, what it essentially is an overlap with PaaS. It focuses on building app functionality without spending time continually managing the servers and infrastructure required. And here, what the cloud provider does is that it handles the setup, capacity planning, and server management for you. The really interesting factor about serverless when we compare it with PaaS is that serverless architectures are heavily event driven and scalable, and they only use resources when a specific function or trigger occurs. So what it means is that with serverless functions, I'll talk about serverless functions. If you've heard of AWS Lambda or Azure functions and all, when you trigger a serverless function, it allocates the the resources on their data centers that you're leveraging on demand at that point of time. So what it does is, because these systems aren't constantly running all the time, it does save a lot of cost, and it only runs when you trigger it. All right. Now, software as a service is something that, it's a method for delivering software applications over the internet on demand, and typically on a subscription basis. So with SaaS, cloud providers host and manage the software application and its infrastructure, and you really have to worry almost about nothing. All you're doing is using these applications for your purpose. The biggest example that you'll probably see of this is G Suite. um, Google Docs, Sheets, all of these are a form of SaaS. That they have that free tier that we tend to use, but then business use cases have another tier, with more storage, with more privileges. So SaaS, that's one good example. Microsoft 365 or Office 365 is another example of SaaS particularly. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute here and just talk about look at the queries once. So as far as, well, which companies demand for cloud computing, I think the companies that, as far as public clouds go, at least, companies that are smaller, that do not have a high amount of capital, benefit a lot from cloud computing. And honestly, anyone can leverage it, because it essentially helps you replace your existing hardware with services you're connected with over the internet. So the hardware is there, it's just someone else is managing it for you. So that's a factor. And for anyone who's extremely privacy centric, that's where private cloud helps out, because that means you have exclusivity. It would also probably move a little closer to your on-center data centers and all. So that's definitely there. But cloud computing is something that I think pretty much every major organization can leverage in some form or the other. Benefits we discussed. Cloud computing is a great field. As far as change in it goes, I think we're going to see more and more different types of applications and solutions that are cloud based that will come up. I mean, if we look at these models right now, they're a lot about, your VMs, your um, your servers, your storage, your databases. But we're already seeing AI based solutions that are cloud managed. Like, I think the example I love working with the most is Azure Cognitive Services, which is like an out of the box set of AI solutions that you can use literally as REST APIs. So as we see more innovations in tech generally, whether it's in spaces like AI, ML, blockchain, all of these, somewhere or the other, cloud is going to be there to support these and grow along. So that's definitely a factor. Which platforms are used for large scale cloud computing? I think there are major public clouds which have a lot of services like Azure, AWS, GCP, Google Cloud Platform. That is, so those are all there. Um, Cloud service roles are provided by Azure. I'm not sure what that intends. If you're talking about role management, there is a lot of control on the owners of each of these subscriptions as well. And there is a lot of Azure Active Directory stuff that you can leverage on that front. It would be a little laterally separate. It's an interesting query. I can definitely look a little more into that. But um, yeah, as far as roles go, I'm not 100% sure what that intended. If it's about what roles in a team you can have, there is freedom on that front for org owners. Apart from that, what made me pick up the cloud computing field? Just when I joined the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador program, back then it was called Microsoft Student Partners. I came across Azure, then it seemed interesting, so I thought, why not? And I tried. And as I tried looking a little more into it, I started enjoying working with it. So that's really what happened. It wasn't that I wanted to work on this or something. I came across I found it interesting, and things just went along. All right, I'm going to talk a little more about the uses of cloud computing, especially in business scenarios and beyond. to help you understand how cloud computing is used, because we are all using cloud-based services in our daily lives, but it's just not a lot of us realize that's what we're doing from time to time. So I'll just talk about some example use cases. All right. So I think one way that we leverage cloud services is to create cloud native applications. Quickly build, deploy, scale web-based applications, APIs, all of that. And we it cloud platforms allow us to take advantage of technologies like Kubernetes, containers, microservices architecture, API driven communication. DevOps literally came up because cloud grew, because that's exactly where we started seeing an overlap between an IT or a dev role. So cloud native applications are something you can always leverage, of course. Cloud makes it easier to test and build applications because it reduces your application development cost and time. Since you don't need your own servers, you can just leverage one of these. And they actually have a lot of dev centric tiers which are built for testing and all, which I'll show when I do my demo. So of course that's there. Apart from that, it's a great way to store, backup, recover data. You can protect your data more cost efficiently at a larger scale. And essentially what you can do is, you're transferring your data over the internet to an offsite storage system that you can access using your credentials at any point of time. So that becomes easier. I think probably as far as data storing goes, one easy way that you would recognize in your own personal life is Google Drive or OneDrive. Those are again cloud centric. Data analysis is another tool, definitely, because you can actually unify data from different teams, divisions, and different locations for your products, your organizations in the cloud. So cloud services currently, as I mentioned earlier, there are ML and AI services available that can provide you more insights, and this can definitely help you understand how to grow and move your organization forward. Streaming audio and video is an advantage. You can connect your audience anywhere, anytime with any device with high definition video and audio with global distribution. Microsoft Stream is definitely an example there. Um, Apart from that, you can embed intelligence. Again, considering that there are AI and ML capabilities, you can use models to help engage customers and provide valuable insights from data captured. And if we talk about customer relation management and platforms like that, Twilio and Segment's done some work on those pipelines, definitely. So that's an example. You can deliver software on demand, of course, which is known as software as a service. And I think, as far as examples of that go, it really doesn't get better than products like Google Docs, Sheets, G Suite essentially, or Microsoft 365. Whew, that was a lot of theoretical information. I hope you're all on board so far. But I'll tell you what, it's fun to talk about this stuff in theory. Um, it's another to actually use and leverage this. So why don't we do one thing? Let's get into a demo now. So for that, I'm just gonna take my screen off for a bit. I'm gonna shift around my screen just to help set up my display for a demo. All right. Before that, I wanna just have a look and see if we have any queries here. So can I elaborate more regarding SaaS and PaaS? Okay, so SaaS examples would include software that are cloud delivered and you're just using on your own, like Office 365 and um, Google Docs and Sheets and all, G Suite. I think that's probably a good enough example. PaaS platforms, the one that I'm going to be using particularly today is Azure App Service. And what it'll allow me to do is it'll just quickly allow me to deploy an application, and it has easy to set up CI/CD. Apart from that, as far as PaaS app, PaaS platforms go, I think other examples would include stuff like Vercel, Netlify, Heroku. Those are there because you're deploying your application without actually managing those servers. It handles all of that for you. So those are examples there, definitely. How can we use cloud computing in our own projects? I'll definitely show how we can do that, because I'm going in this demo, I'll show how you can deploy your own web applications and all. Apart from that, there are a lot of AI enabled facilities you can use as well. So that's stuff I'm going to showcase right now, definitely. Let me scroll down. How are platforms like GCP, AWS similar, and how are they different? Of course, one different factor being different organizations are managing these, so they have different brandings, different titles, different cost structures, but they're all providing similar services, right? Similar IT infrastructure that you can leverage. So probably that's the easiest way to discuss and share about that. I see a question around tips. I'm gonna take that, but I'll do it a little closer towards the end. Um, I see one more question that I'm gonna take before I jump into the demo, and that is, can I talk about some beginner-friendly project ideas? If we're talking about cloud-related stuff, cloud is something you can leverage all the time in your ideas. Like sometime back, I worked on a little solution, an SOS application. What that does is basically, if you're not feeling safe or something, you just press on a button in the application, and it'll send my current coordinates from my phone. This was a Xamarin project, a cross-platform app project using .NET that I built. And what that does is it just sends your geolocation to an Azure function, which is a serverless function. And with that, it'll reverse geolocate using your the coordinates I've sent, and it will SMS them to an emergency number that's preset using Twilio. So the reverse geolocation was happening using the Google Maps API, which is something you access through Google Cloud. So another offering that you can leverage from there. I'd say that probably Google Maps platform would probably be best, I guess. Um, no, I'll have to check on that. But well, the function was serverless, and that's what we were leveraging there. So that's one idea that I worked on a while back. Specific models for cloud architecture, I discussed earlier about types of these, so you can probably scroll back a little and look into those. Okay, then, so I'm just gonna be switching my screen, and you folks, I'll have here on the right side. So what this basically means is that if I'm looking here, it's just that I've got you all on the right side because I'll have my demo on my first screen in the front. So if I look on the right side, it just means I'm looking at your chat and your comments. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a basic .NET web application, an ASP.NET application. You can do this with any cloud, with any other technology you want. I'm just working with .NET because I like working with .NET. But I'm going to show you how you can work with different platforms. All right. So let me start Git Bash. I'm gonna do a little thing. I'm gonna create a little directory, and I think this should help a little with visibility. Okay, I just realized my screen. I'm just bringing that up. Forgot I had to share it. Sorry about that. Okay, I think it should be visible now. So I'm just gonna create a little directory here that is called Innerve. And within this, I'm gonna create a a little application, an ASP.NET application that is it's gonna be a full web app that you can actually run. I'm gonna call it. Well, I'm just gonna create this right now. This is a .NET command. If you don't have .NET, nothing to worry about. You can do the same stuff with Node or any other platform you prefer. Python-based ones are also they do work. I'm gonna call my application test. So let me see. Okay, I had to actually enter that and create cd of just create test in there once. Yep, I just created the directory, but I never added anything. I didn't enter it and created the app project. So, well, never mind. That's just something that's going to make things easier. So now you can see, I guess, that test is the one we're using, right? And I'm just going to go ahead, enter test as well, and open VS Code here. So this will give you my application, all of it. It's not something you need to worry about too much. It's just an example that I want to show for our use case. All right. So don't worry too much about if you don't understand too much of this application. I'm just gonna get it running. Just gonna show a basic structure here. We have a startup file, which is what starts our .NET project. This is our public stuff. Different pages are in here. That's the index page. So just basic stuff, nothing to worry about. Let me show you what happened when I run this project. So I have my terminal here, and I'm gonna enter a command called .NET watch run. And what this will do is it will start my .NET application and let me look at the web app. All right. So once this starts, you'll just get to see what sort of an application we have running, and this is the application that we're gonna go ahead and deploy, right? Okay. Yes, I want those. That's just as an extension for VS Code that I have. Okay, thank you so much for that. All right, so our application is up and running. It's a basic application. It just has a little link to learn out about building, and it's a Hello World application essentially. That's what this is. We have our home page, we have our privacy page, and we can just go back to the home page. Test brings us back as well. So if I go ahead and I change welcome to welcome Innerve, I think it's gonna rebuild it. Yeah, it's rebuilding it. Oh, see, so that's the web application that we have. Now, what we want to do is we want to kind of deploy this to Azure. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to first deploy it from VS Code. Then I'm going to show you how CI/CD in VS Code can be set up as well. All right, and we're going to do that using GitHub. So on the left we have the little extend. Well, these are the okay. That's for code spaces. I'm gonna have to zoom out a little. Sorry about that. Yeah. So on Azure, we've got a few different services that we have. For this one, you just need to install the app service extension here from the extension store. All right. It's easy to find. You can just search for Azure App Service and install it. This is for Azure particularly. I'm gonna, once I've deployed the application from here, just to show you that it deploys, I will take you to Azure and show the portal as well. Or I'll tell you what, let's not do that from here. We'll directly do it from the Azure portal. Let me just go ahead. I'm gonna publish this to GitHub. Okay. And I'm gonna publish this to a public repository. We wanna include all, I don't wanna include bin and obj. So it's probably just gonna be a repo called test, I think. But yeah, that's okay. That's not a worry for us. Successfully published the repo to test well. So yeah, that's a little repo we have, and we're gonna use this to set up our Azure App Service. So one thing I want to mention, at least since we're all students, you can actually get $100 worth of Azure credit for free using this little site called aka.ms/a4s. It refers to Azure's students offer. I'll send the link in the private chat, and the team can share this link with you all as well. So you can go ahead, get your credits from here. Another way to get this is, the GitHub Student Developer Pack. Great resource again. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, since I have Azure for myself, I'm just going to go ahead and open the Azure portal. All right. That's my login. Yes. While I'm logging in, I'm probably just going to change the name of this to Innerve test. Yeah. That would probably make it a little easier for me to track these. I'm going to get to beginner resources. I'm going to share those as well. So this is the Azure portal that we have. As you can see, there are different Azure services we have up here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. We've got a little bar. A lot of this interface can actually be customized. I just kind of like the simple basic one. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a resource. The resource that I want is for web applications because I wanna deploy this as a web app. So I just scrolled down and I found this little category here that is web. Yeah, I'm gonna close that for now. And when I click on web, what it does is it shows me a few of these different services that we have. Now, since we're creating a web app, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a web app. You can also click on this, and the fun thing is, okay, I'll just go back for a second. Yeah. So the fun thing is for these different services, Microsoft actually offers learn content, right? So you can just find this MS Learn link here, open it on a different tab, and it'll take you to a learning course around this. And I'll share learn paths from here around Azure as well. In the meantime, anyway, this is a great reference for anything Azure, and it has basic cloud content as well. So you can always have a look at that at any point of time. It has some platform agnostic content and then more Azure specific ones. So back to that, we want to create a web app for ourselves. So first things first, what we need to do is we need to create a resource group. Now a resource group is like a little collection of different resources. It helps track, um, well, it keeps relevant resources together in one space, and it lets you, well, just tag them and manage pricing accordingly. I'm gonna create a new one here called Innerve, since this is for Innerve. Yeah. And this web app, by the way, is an example of the PaaS platforms I was talking about earlier, because this lets developers deploy and scale their web applications, mobile APIs and all easily. It has a lot of variety. It has a good variety of options as well. Right now, they've added this little feature to try a new web plus database sort of thing. We don't need a database right now, so I'm not going to click on that. I'm going to name this website as Innerve Test. Okay, it's available. In case this would not have been available, it would have shown a little cross mark instead of a tick. What this basically means is that this domain has never been used. So this is available. Now, considering our case, since we want to publish code, we're going to keep it as code. My runtime stack, what I'm going to select is .NET 5, since I am using .NET 5 right now. But the fun thing is you actually have quite a few options. So you can use a Java application, something with Node, PHP. PHP is an option. Python is there. We've got Ruby, all of these. So you can leverage all of these platforms and runtimes, for your purpose. I'm going to let this operating system stay as Windows. It works quite well for .NET, so I'll leave it at that. You can change it. As far as region goes, it's always a good idea to keep one for yourself that's closer to yourself for better bandwidth. I'm going to choose Central India. Okay. For the app service plan, this kind of helps you determine the pricing tier. Okay. Now there is a Windows plan here that's free. As far as you can always create a new plan as well. For now, we're gonna stay on this free plan. This, since we don't have too many, we're not trying to scale this up. But you can actually go ahead, create a new plan. So if I want to create a nerve plan, I can do that as well. And I can change the specifications of this. So here, we have some production specific, deployment plans with different pricing tiers, different compute resources behind this. Because what app service does is it manages your infrastructure for you by letting you deploy. So underlying there is definitely some compute resource, but you don't have to worry about managing that. It's gonna handle that. Then of course you have some of these isolated tiers which are for very advanced networking and scaling stuff. And I'm sure the cost kind of signifies that, because that unit here costs 95,000 a month just for the deployment. So pretty crazy. Apart from that, I mean, production workloads are there. These are things that you would use, in a production environment, but it's not something we're worried about. We're going to go to the dev and test workloads. And as you can see, we have free tiers here as well. So you can actually leverage these in order to test your solutions. So I'm gonna just leave this at the free tier, but if you upgrade to something like the D1, you can add custom domains and all. If you look at some of the more expensive ones, there's more features like manual scaling, from with multiple instances if you want to connect a load balancer. There's a lot of these offerings here. I'm just going to leave it at free since it's not a big worry for us. We have a very small application. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to look at the deployment settings. It's a good idea to just look at these settings. In our case, we want to keep this on because what this will do is it'll set up a GitHub action for us that will manage our integration and deployment. So whenever you make an update to your code, you just push to GitHub, it's going to deploy it on its own. I want to keep this on, so I'm going to do so. My account here, at least for GitHub Actions, was set up already. If you're doing this for the first time, you'll have to log into GitHub, but it's fairly straightforward. So after that, it's just a matter of selecting your organization and repository. So in my case, what I want to do is I'm going to stick to my personal account and not some other organization. Next thing is to select the repository. So it's going to show all your repositories here. In our case, the one that we had was Innerve test, right? And you can actually set multiple branches. It's totally your call. You can preview the workflow file if you want. It's fairly straightforward, so not something you need to worry about. Next thing is monitoring. Application Insights is a really good tool there. It especially helps if you have API calls and all of that, because it lets you track and see and just manage your application's performance. So it's a great tool that you can use, especially when you're working on some larger products. I'm just going to leave it as is. Tags, it just helps you categorize better. I'll just call it as, well, the name is enough. Oh, well, I mean, it's a key value pair. I can just, well, yeah, I'll just call it enough. Okay, yeah, sorry. App service. And you can select which resource you want it on. I'm just going to leave it at all of them. Next step is just to review what all you've done. Always a good idea to do this. Let's not skip the review step, because sometimes you may have said something wrong at the start and then it becomes a problem later on. Okay, so next thing to do is just create. Now what this is going to do is it's going to start deploying these resources. Let me zoom out a little bit here. In the meantime, I'll just look at the chat here, look for questions. Yeah, SAS and password discussed earlier. Oh, hi Shubhangi. Thank you so much for joining in. I just saw Shubhangi in the chat. Okay, so my deployment is in progress and it's managing most stuff. So that's why it makes it easy, because if you see, Azure is setting up this entire app service for me, and all I need to do now is worry about my code and push it to GitHub to manage the deployment. So I have to set up no hardware, no infrastructure at all. There's absolutely nothing else I need to really worry about. Okay, so next step, I'm just gonna go to the resource. And as you see, there is a URL that is set up for me. So if I click on this URL, it should ideally load this website here for us. I think it's probably still running the deployment. Let me just check. Yeah. So what happened is, as soon as I added CI/CD, it added a GitHub action here for my device that I can actually look at. So the reason it shows this is because it's actually setting up the deployment, which you can view in real time. You can check all the steps it's doing, which is really cool. So right now, it's building my application for me. It's building it for the first time. And this is all on infrastructure that's managed by Azure. Because I'm using app service, again, I have to worry about none of this. It's going to do all of this on its own, which makes life very, very easy. Now, considering that it's built my application, the next step, of course, for it is to deploy it. So I can actually check the deployment live as I do it. So it's setting up the job for me, downloading, and it's going to deploy it to Azure. I'm just kind of showing this in real time. Whenever you're working, you don't actually have to continue looking at this. But if you do see, it does have some sense, some amount of logging there. So that way, in case you ever run into problems, it makes life very easy. And you can actually check out the logs here whenever you want. So that's there. I'll take you there later on. But initially, we'd seen this website because the app hadn't been deployed. Now, if I reload it, it should show that same page that I had earlier. So that's pretty cool. it makes development a lot quicker, a lot easier. um, Definitely, like I like working with app service and all. And if I look at the logs, so that link I clicked on, which has all the deployment logs, it shows me what exact step ran, running the deployment command, generating it. It has all the messages, the exact time when it was logged, all of these details, which makes life very, very easy. And yeah, this is basically a JSON format. It looks clean because I have a little Chrome extension called JSON View installed, which makes life very convenient if you're dealing a lot and trying and working with APIs. So good extension to have if you're viewing JSON responses in your browser. If I would deactivate this, I actually don't want to, but if I would, it probably would just show all of these in like a single long sort of line. I'm just gonna close this for now. But yeah, that's our Azure function in action. So that's our GitHub action running. And you can actually check the workflow runs here. So this here says add or update the app service build and deploy. And the reason for that is when it added the GitHub action to my repo, once I set that CI/CD up, it basically made a commit, right? So the commit's name is there. Now, suppose I want to make a change to this um, website that I have. Let's just close my localhost for now. We'll look at the Azure website. That's probably an easier way to do that. I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna play around on the index page only. So if I wanna maybe remove some of this content here and add, thank you so much for learning about cloud computing and Azure today. Let's see. We have a little change here. I'm gonna add this. I'll add a commit message here. VS Code makes life easy as a developer. Happy about that always. So let's just say update index page. Because that's what we're essentially doing. And you know, I'm just gonna commit this. Okay, I realize I'll have to pull it and then push it. Let me, yeah, I'm just gonna push this change. So going back to GitHub. Yeah, as soon as the commits were made here, right, we saw that index page and we saw a merge branch because I had pulled the changes and then pushed it earlier again. So it ran the GitHub action again for me. So clicking on the actions tab, I'll now see an action running on that last commit. That was the merge branch. And this is a nice way to kind of look at it and view it. As this functions, it then triggers the deploy action here. So if we look at the build again, it's just gonna rebuild the solution and then deploy it. You can actually check out this workflow. I didn't show the workflow file earlier, but if I go to this folder here, it has all of this information for us. So it uses a few steps. The first one is just it's a necessary action that we need for this, and you can actually learn about the functionings. I'm going to do a comparison of the steps here versus the ones in our action that are running there. Next thing is, it sets up .NET, and these are all available in the GitHub marketplace, by the way. The .NET version here is set as 5 because that's what we had set when we were using app service, when we were setting up app service. So that's how it creates this file for us. That's just a path that's going to be there as a GitHub secret. It sets that up, whenever we connect CI/CD and deploy this. Whenever we set up CI/CD for this repo, it's gonna add that to my GitHub secrets, and it's just an environment variable here that's being used for the deployment later on. For the build and deployment. So we've got all of these steps here, and as you see these, let me take you to the actions tab once again. It's run successfully, which is great. So earlier we saw that little title called setup job, and it has that here for us. Run actions, checkout. It's gonna initialize the repository, all of that. Each of these steps, how they ran, you can actually visit and check here. So if I reload my website again, it has that change that I added. which is awesome. That's lovely. Makes life very easy. If there's other stuff you want to play around and work with, I can showcase a few other services in Azure. We have databases. Like if I go ahead, um, databases, you have quite a few options here for databases, to be honest. You have, SQL managed instances, SQL database. Cosmos DB is a NoSQL database that you have. You can have Postgres, MySQL, all of these options. There's Redis cache as well. If you look at compute, there's Kubernetes. Function apps are the serverless functions I was talking about. You can have a virtual machine you want to set up. These are some server that you can leverage. I like the AML offerings. You can actually have all of these. Computer vision is a great offering of Azure Cognitive Services that you can leverage. These are just common ones and popular ones. You can actually search for specific stuff here as well. So if I search for a cognitive services specific product, it'll show that for me. And what's cool is you can open and see all of these in the marketplace, which has a huge amount of offerings otherwise. So if you want to leverage NVIDIA's image for AI that's optimized for TensorFlow, you've got these here. You've got ML services specifically, automated ML stuff. There's data learning, data preparation services. There's a huge plethora of offerings. And these were just AI specific services because we'd selected AI category. You can find all of these categories here that you can use for your purpose. So that was there for the demo. I think I'll probably come back to some of these questions I had earlier that I was talking about as well. And okay, actually, before that, let me take you back to the learning resource I was sharing about. If you want to check out this, if you actually want to play around with this repo, maybe add some code to it. I'll throw in the website link here so you can do that as well. Let me just add the website here. And this is a public repository, so you can try contributing to it. Um, I think our hosts can share it here with you in the chat. So that's awesome. Yeah, sorry. I'll just Microsoft Learn. That's the platform I was talking about. It's a really cool platform with a lot of different learning resources that you can use. You can actually go ahead. This is just some that it offers for me. Looking at some of the challenges and the courses that I've been trying out. What's fun is you can actually search by product. So Azure and all of there, of course. You can search for role as well. Learn TV is another offering they have, which is like a stream that they have constantly running. It's actually a 24-hour stream, and they have something on Entity Framework core running. So if there's any .NET buff in there, it's gonna definitely help you out. Apart from that, there's certifications are something you can search here. I'm gonna show you how you can find some cloud related stuff. So if you just go ahead, click on Azure, it's going to have all of these different learn paths for you. And a great place to get started is the Azure Fundamentals one. It's going to link you to core Azure concepts. Aside from that, if you just search cloud computing, yeah, this is something I was looking for. So, oh, sorry, no, this is one of the courses that was developed in collaboration with Carnegie Mellon University by Microsoft. I was actually looking for a different one actually. Just a second. I mean, it has quite a few. I think this was the one I was looking for. Foundations of Cloud Computing for Developers. Yes, this is a good little resource to generally talk about cloud resources. It is pretty platform agnostic. There's a lot of content in there, so definitely worth a look. It has the history of cloud computing, what types of cloud services are available, common popular use cases. So you can actually look at this at any point of time that you want. And beside from that, there's a lot of different stuff in the platform to explore. There's content around, all of these products. There's .NET, Azure, GitHub. For HoloLens, you've got dedicated services like Graph, Teams. There's Minecraft stuff as well. Interesting. That must be Minecraft education related content. So it's got an amazing amount of content up there for you, and you can actually find these different services based on whatever use case you want to play around with. So I'm gonna take my screen share off and have a look at some of the queries here in the chat. I probably need a little water at this moment as well. Um, okay, I'll tell you what. I mean, I have my website. If you want to reach out, I'll keep that up as well, and we'll take queries along with this now. So that should make things comfortable, a little easier. I have shared my screen, so yep. So yeah, just keeping this up for now. We're gonna have a little discussion based on any queries you might have, and you can always learn more about my work on my website. It needs a few updates, minor ones there, but I'm gonna do that very soon. Yeah, taking a little water now. Oh, we've been on for an hour. Thank you so much to all of you for hanging around.
Thank you so much, Aditya. That was a very wholesome session. Let's see if there are some questions in the comments.
Yep. I think we can probably start from, yeah, any prerequisites. I was looking at the same questions. Yeah, so typically, if you're looking into cloud, it's good to have some sort of a knowledge and background about networking, a little bit about operating systems. Databases, of course, helps. And if you've tried your hand at a bit of programming, all of these are going to help you out. That being said, the courses that I've sent in are pretty beginner centric, so you can start from scratch there as well. Concepts of networking and all will help you out when you try playing around with infrastructure related stuff like virtual machines, for example. Because if you set up a Linux VM, chances are you won't have a GUI at the start, so you're gonna have to play around with SSH and set that up. So just knowledge of Linux there would help, for example. And then when you're trying to scale your resources, use a load balancer, or all of that, in knowledge of networking help. So it's just a lot of different concepts that come together. But the good thing is that even if you're not aware, there's a huge amount of resources available that you can leverage for this purpose. Microsoft Learn is just a great place to start there. Yeah. Let's look at the next question. Which one do we have? Commonly used areas of cloud computing. Um, okay, so I think probably it's a good idea if you could define what areas means, but I guess if you're talking about resources and services, PaaS offerings like app service that I showed, databases that are available on the cloud, that's commonly used. Some AI/ML offerings pretty common, if even if as I showed some of these here, but beyond that, GCP has some great stuff for TensorFlow, for example. Um, Serverless functions like with AWS Lambda or Azure functions, those are great. Another PaaS platform, actually, I think Firebase that's more of a backend as a service, but I believe that would probably fall within a similar context. I am currently the organization I'm working at, Appwrite. We're an open source backend as a service, so you can actually host it on any VM, and after that, it works as well a platform that you can use on its own. So that's one sort of an area. So we've got a lot of different stuff here. I like this question. So when we talk about how you can use cloud computing if you want to start your own business. Now, if you're creating your business, chances are that at a smaller scale, you're not going to have enough capital to create your own data center there. So that's where cloud helps. It's a lot more cost effective. It lets you get resources just as you want, pay as you go, month by month, and it'll help you set up your infrastructure for your tech a lot quicker. Even if it's not your product isn't tech intensive, your services aren't tech intensive, but you probably have something like a website, right? So you can use one of these services for deployment. And fun stuff with Azure, you can actually buy domains from within there and connect them to your services. So that's pretty cool. I wouldn't be able to show that right now, at least because the resource I created was a free resource. Within any of the paid resources, it offers custom domains, and you can purchase domains from the Azure store. For a beginner in this field, yeah, I think one advice that I would have is that there's stuff that when I talked about these, there's some background knowledge that you might need at times. So if you're going in without or having all the prerequisites like I did, stuff can get a little overwhelming at times. So a good, I just recommend that if you ever hit these roadblocks, just stay calm. There are a lot of resources. Try to leverage the documentation as much as you can. It's a good way to understand stuff. And if you ever need help, just please feel free to ask. There's a lot of people trying to help and work in the cloud space, particularly. And yeah, that's one of the most important advice that I can give. Just ask and take help whenever you need it. As far as my cloud computing journey goes, I think that would probably it started off a couple of years back with the Microsoft Student Ambassadors program, which was then the Microsoft Student Partners. What I honestly started because it was just a big part of the program. People were always talking about it, so I thought, why not? I'll try my hand at it, and I started working with Azure. I tried using it in a few of my personal projects, and I liked how it worked. So that's really how it was. I've just continued working with it ever since. If you start working on it from your second year, just pace it out as you want. I don't think there is a right or a wrong pace to go about it. This is a real world technology that can really help you in a lot of ways, and chances are there's some offerings you may not always need, but just enjoy with these platforms and technologies. Don't try to look at them like a course or something that you have to finish in a semester or two. It's a technology that's really amazing that you can work with, that can help you in the long run. So enjoy with it. Honestly, don't try to look at it as if it's a it's you're doing it as a course. Take work at your own pace. We have quite a lot of opportunities coming up. There are a lot of organizations with cloud engineering or DevOps related opportunities, which have come up really because of this entire field of cloud computing. Because with cloud resources, developers and IT administrators and teams are closer than ever. So, there are opportunities in this domain that are growing, and they're only going to continue to grow in the future. Again, as much as you want. There is no fixed amount of time, and you shouldn't look at it as an amount of time to learn about cloud computing. It's a very large domain. There's so much within it to explore and learn and enjoy that you should continue just enjoying this process as you go. Please don't look at it as a course or just I need to finish it in this much time, otherwise my career is stuck. That's nothing like that is going to happen. Take your own time. All of them, honestly. Each of them have their own offerings that are great. Just because I might prefer Azure doesn't mean another of these don't have good offerings, right? So play around with all of them, try them out. They all have something amazing about them. That's why the world is using these platforms. And why limit yourself to these three? There are so many other platforms. When you start looking, there's Oracle's cloud, you've got Alibaba's own cloud. For hybrid clouds, there's Nutanix. There's a lot of these platforms, and you shouldn't restrict yourself. These three are the biggest public clouds, but you don't have to be like, Azure is the best and then the others. You can like and want to work with all these platforms that you want. What is the best way to go? So that's exactly the learn paths I shared is are a good way to get started, and you can start using cloud-based services in your hackathons and your personal projects. That's a good way to at least get a basic amount of understanding, because stuff like app service, databases, cognitive services that I was mentioning about earlier, these you can always leverage in your personal projects as well. So you can start playing around and experimenting. And yes, chances are you won't have to use some of the enterprise level features, but it's going to help you with the fundamentals at least. Sure. So Appwrite is an open source end-to-end backend server that is available for mobile, web, Flutter developers. It's cross-platform, and it's a self-hosted solution currently that provides developers with a set of easy-to-use and in APIs that you can integrate for your backend needs. Currently, these are REST APIs. We do have plans for some GraphQL stuff in the future as well. That's I think that's being worked on right now. And yeah, quick point, considering we're open source, we have a lot of Hacktoberfest stuff happening, including a very, very cool panel tonight later on. I'm just throwing in a link around that. You can unlearn what we're doing right now for Hacktoberfest, and you can find the company link there as well. But yeah, it'd be nice to have some of you folks join in because we have a really cool panel happening that you can find on the link here. It's gonna be one around open source communities, so fun stuff. You don't have to, but you can actually leverage cloud services for IoT work. Like Azure, for example, has an IoT edge which allows you to connect devices over regions a lot quicker. So you don't have to learn IoT for cloud. You can just leverage cloud when you're building some IoT solutions for yourself. You can always have fun with these technologies. Which is better to choose between data science or cloud computing? Whichever one you like more. Yeah, that's the answer. Whichever one you like more. What is the role of okay, that's a good question. So like I showed you earlier, um, I had a choice there in the middle when I was creating my app service resource, and that was, well, Linux and Windows, and that's when I'm working with a PaaS solution. Chances are there are going to be times when you need to work with the infrastructure as well, with virtual machines and all. And at that point of time, you're going to be working directly with OSs like Linux and all. Um, Linux is a kernel, Linux-based OSs like Debian and Ubuntu and all of these. And that's where this helps because you're going to be working with system resources at that point of time to leverage all of these features that all of these resources that you have on the cloud. So having knowledge of OSs helps on that front. That's honestly a Google search where you can search for that on Google. What cloud computing add to APIs in Android? Okay, so you can actually build and deploy APIs of app service, for example. I've done that quite a few times. I probably have an example that I can show you. Just give me a second. I'll bring that up on my screen. I'll need to reshare it, but that's a nice one. I'll show you how you can play around with cloud for you know for APIs. So let me just bring back my GitHub again. I'm just gonna share the entire window like the screen this time. So that'll make life a little easier later on. Right, so there's my GitHub, and I think what I will have here I created a to-do API earlier in another session that I deployed of Azure App Services, and it's gonna go directly to the Swagger. So this is an API that I deployed earlier, and I can just use this API at whatever platform, be it um, a web-based or a mobile-based. I'll throw in the GitHub link for this as well, so you can check it out. You can find the code. It's a very basic solution that uses a SQL database at the backend from Azure to get all of the information. So we have a little response set up there, a message, a status, and then you can use you can deploy APIs off the cloud and have these running. So that makes life pretty easy. I mean, these are just CRUD sort of functions, but it's a good example of what you can do. You can post stuff. It's a basic to do API, but you can leverage this in your application, for example. Um, yeah, that's there. Okay. I was expecting that question. I kind of didn't necessarily. I mean, yeah, I'll take that. So, what happens is that when we're looking at these technology, I have to say I don't like this sort of thought because what we do here is we kind of limit these technologies to just entries into companies, but these technologies go far beyond that. Now, If you want a placement perspective, sure, there are companies that come in with DevOps profiles that you can apply with, and with any DevOps profile, you will need some exposure to cloud because that's what you're working on. But I want you all to kind of expand your thought beyond just a college exam or an internship or a placement, and maybe try and play around with these technologies. Because until you try that, you're not going to enjoy these. These will be just another means to a job or a course, but that's not how you enjoy working with these platforms. So yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to talk about an advantage in your placements or resume, extra platform that you worked with that you can deploy to that you have an understanding of, it's something that's in the world out there, so it helps. But try and think beyond placements, please, for these technologies. On demand functionality, lovely question. How it is provided in cloud computing is through something that we know as serverless. So serverless doesn't mean there isn't a server. Please, there is a compute resource, and that's a very honestly, it's an all right question. It's a very common one. It's okay to think that. I used to think that when I heard serverless, I'm like, there's no server or what, and it's a good first question to have. It's all right. So what happens here with serverless functions is that you what when you trigger these functions are driven. It could be an http request. They could be triggered through those. It could be cron schedules, so timed triggers. It could be there's a lot of other triggers you can have, honestly. But essentially some event occurs, and what that does is that the cloud then allocates resources for you to run this function at that specific point of time. So because you've triggered an event and it's running the function, it's essentially an on-demand function. It's allocated on demand. So that's on-demand functionality for you. And yeah, if you find serverless functions and solutions anywhere, they are leveraging on-demand functionality. So clouds are, that's a platform. Um, a cloud would be a platform that you're using, that you're leveraging to use IT resources that are offered by another organization, and you're leveraging them just off the internet. DevOps is a software engineering mentality. It's a methodology that you have, and what this does is it brings the software developer and the IT administrator a lot closer. So you have concepts such as infrastructure as code that are coming in, and this is especially impactful when we talk about domains such as when we talk about cloud native solutions and all. But well, keeping that aside, it's really a sort of a combination of different practices, tools, philosophies that enable your organization to deliver quicker and better by bringing software developers and IT administrators and managers a lot closer. What is the use of a virtualization platform in implementing cloud? So when we talk about virtualization on the cloud particularly, um, yeah, what this does essentially is that it lets us make a virtual ecosystem of storage devices and a server OS. So it enables users to use various machines that share one single instance of any resource. What are platforms for large scale cloud computing? You can look at any of these major cloud platforms like Azure, GCP, AWS. All of them have major offerings. Sure, a big benefit here is that you don't have to manage your own security. Platforms have their own inbuilt offerings. So, just for example, with Azure, you have something called, you have Azure's own stuff, and then there's something called Azure Sentinel, which is a cloud native security information and event manager. So, like that's an example, but essentially, it's the cloud platform that's managing your security for you. They're ensuring the standards. Um, so it takes a lot of that work off you, and you're working with more secure systems because it has the with the cloud security it becomes its own domain as well. Honestly, it's quite a vast one, but on on an easier, like at least to understand on a basic sort of way, because you have offerings like identity management, you have network protections because you can actually have public private networks in there. There is security for compute services. You have compliance and policies, all of that. So there's just quite a few things that cloud platforms are enabling from a security perspective. Securing data for transport. Um, yeah, you can use. I mean, if it's closed resources, you can leverage a private network, right? You can have devices behind a private network that you could leverage for security. So it's essentially disconnected from the rest of the world, just within their own little network there. I'm not sure if I understand this question because computing for mobiles. Sorry, I'm not too clear. Could you elaborate on what what you mean by computing for mobiles? I'll tell you what. If you could elaborate in the chat, we'll probably take this up a little later because I'm actually unsure of what computing for mobiles means here. My favorite project, sure, yes, I loved working on my Imagine Cup project this year. That was Code Capture. So Code Capture is a little solution, a web application that helps people who do not have computers or institutions that do not have computers learn and work and code by basically allowing you to click a picture of code and your web app will extract it so you can edit and then compile it. That was a really fun one. Had so much Azure in it, it's crazy. Our web app was deployed as static web apps. We were using cognitive services, computer vision API for our OCR. We had our compilers running on an Azure VM because we didn't want to use like a just-in-time compilers because mobile resources. Well, that we didn't have. We wanted to be able to work with low system resources. Um, yeah, there was we had Azure functions for most of our infrastructure work, so it was pretty cool that way. I had a lot of fun. We spent months on it, and yeah, with that project we ended up as national winners in the education category for Imagine Cup. So that was a fun time. I think though the best impact of that project was that we were able to take that and get featured in the Hour of Code initiative, which is one of the biggest coding education initiatives in the world. It runs in over 180 countries, and it's where I started my coding journey back in school from because like it helps you understand how CS works, how algorithms work. So that was really cool, personally. We did some stuff with Hack. We had a session with HackClub IGDTUW around code capture as well a while back. I think it was HackClub and Technoliterati together, and Shubhangi is just an amazing person, helped us out with and set that up. So big cheers to both of those. What feature? I think probably my favorite fact is that I don't have to manage any stuff. It's just all of it is on the internet that I can use these resources off the internet. It makes deployments and stuff really quick for me. Like I just showed this to you, right? I connected my GitHub repo and my web app was up there. I make any changes I push to GitHub, it's automatically setting that up. So it makes life easy. It makes life convenient. It takes off this entire headache, you know. So that makes things so much well faster. It's a lot more cost effective. So that's all there. Some interesting projects. Honestly, if you're working on your basic web applications, APIs, all of that for cloud, just try using a cloud resource instead of maybe trying it on your local device. Try deploying it. That's what I would say. I mean, I won't say specific ideas. I rather let you all ideate because the projects I would think of are not maybe some things that would interest you and vice versa. So what I'll recommend is look at problems, small problems you have in your daily life that you think you can solve with tech. Try working on those. Anything you'd probably go ahead and do in a hackathon is a good idea. And try using cloud resources instead of just running on your local device. That's probably a good way to play around and learn more about cloud. I think yeah, we covered this one earlier, but essentially larger public cloud platforms like Azure, AWS, GCP, all of those, they enable this. You can work at a large scale with these platforms. So sure, with those are great. In case you have any other queries, you can always find my website. It has my contact details and all as well, so you can always check that out. Do we have any other queries that we may not have covered earlier? I think we were able to cover quite a lot. So um, let me see. How is blockchain used? Okay, we do have the blockchain service in Azure. You can actually check that out. There was a session in C Sharp Corners Cloud Summit about that. So go search for that. It's gonna be fun to check out.
So I guess it's time, and the session was really, really amazing. And yes, I remember that code for our initiative where we had this amazing code capture functionality. I like that really. So
Awesome.
I guess we are done with the session. Any ending notes you would like to say to the audience?
Yeah, when it comes to platforms and technologies like cloud, I know a lot of us are accustomed to kind of work in contexts of our academic lives or just from the perspective of our careers because it's a big worry we all have. Um, I will recommend though try doing these just maybe to enjoy and have fun with these because that's how I started enjoying tech. It wasn't because I wanted to do all of these for from a career perspective or because I knew that I'm gonna do this and it's gonna build my career or something. I didn't do it because of that. I just tried out Azure and I showed .NET earlier, right? I like .NET because well I tried it and I enjoyed working with C Sharp. So try playing around with tech just because it's a fun thing to do. Enjoy with it, make little applications. I okay. That last comment, random info Twitter space. Yeah, that's a nice call out. Thanks for that. I've been doing random community convos on Twitter spaces. But yeah, anyway. So just enjoy with tech, have fun with it, build your own solutions. I think one of the most funny apps that I built recently on stream with MLH was just an application that will rickroll someone. So it's you enter the number, press send, it's gonna call up the person and they're gonna get rickrolled essentially. So that was also, I think, I used Azure Function somewhere around there. It had Twilio, which is a cloud communications as a service platform. So play around with these technologies, have fun with them, and that's the best way to get started and get moving.
Yeah, that's really the right thing. So I guess we are over with the session. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for conducting an amazing session, and I really liked the way you talked with the audience. I just really loved it. I've been really loving all your sessions.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And yeah, I hope some people will get started with cloud stuff after this. Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be nice. Chalo, all right then. See you all. Take care. Bye bye.